talk about soul characters. So, and one thing in common, they died and were soul trapped. They're not always restricted the soul parent as some weird spectral soul. Instead, the Island Master selected a few of them to become guardians of the soul or less, well, intellectual. Maybe the reason the Island Masters keep all these spectral souls around is just in case they need more people to see what's wrong next one. Maybe they're just treating them as gold.
Misunderestimated in there.
Just Google the hot dots to find. I went out and issued a 30,000 frames of digital content strategies that were exactly designed for perfect pros. It's only got 18 years, but they're all AI tools, strictly for entertainment purposes. If you think I'm playing a video game that puts you into my own,
Well, maybe if I actually serve the purpose and not play, they would enjoy my game.
so you're getting your connotation says no actual purpose. Awesome, bravo. Get there, class, individually. We can all be on our way to the Master Class performance. Donald, better than part of the series and will remain a valuable member of the trip. All right, fine, then. You can clap, but only golf clap. Actually, no, only clap in the what the hell is golf?
Nope. Shut up. So what the hell is the point of me being here if I can only clap?
Great fucking question. Why'd you hear the first one? This will be fun. What do we do with it? Okay? Yes. Donald, would you like to pick the course for this episode? Absolutely.
Why does he get to pick?
Because Ben, he's the only one that wants to play this. Hold up. That's a load of boring. I've been wanting to play it. Oh, all right. Never mind then. Would you like to pick, George? You can't do that. You already said I could pick. Yeah, look at the die. In that case, you hear a bitch about whatever choice I pick, I'm involved in that side. True. Hey, at least I can play. Also, I'm picking light. I don't know. They said it's at sea level, though. I'm not optimistic. It's quite difficult to get the ball falling apart. Yeah, no, what? You know, we don't actually hit the ball on the water. I'm pretty certain the course is up on that cliff. So that cliff was well above sea level. And sea level is steep. You got a point, Obama. Over here. You're good. Shut the fuck up. Okay, so right on point. Can you tell me the holes and the path? It's on the yeah, but I need to enter it on the scorecard so I can transfer it to the scorecard we show on screen. Gotta make everything so difficult. Oh, did I know that? No, I was thinking it today. We need more tips to all.
Damn it, Tom. This is something that's smart ass that we can play.
You need some weird things I didn't think. You better get on. Joe is like to say that. What? No, I'm good. 4, 5, 3, yes, in that order. All right. Got it. All right. Stay line up the last time. Maybe George still the dollar. Well, oh, that's right. That's right. Oh,
After quite the hiatus, the presidents are finally back with
oh,
me.
see. What else? Can't actually go in there, so it's not a pretty long game. It's good. Daddy Bear is a okay. Really? You can't. No, I'm going to overfly. Very hitting the whole thing. Not with the characters you gave us play as you made. Well, you're supposed to upgrade your characters after when you level up. Have you all been doing it?
Beautiful swing from Barack Obama for his first runner.
No. You got to use this consistently. My name is Donald and my ball has to drop. Yeah.
That's pretty fucking great for this year.
Oh no.
Practically just skipped over the top of the Obama.
That's success. I mean, you're not wrong, but exactly. Because you gotta make fun of that at least to the end of it. Well, of course, it's good. But what would be the fun of that? I don't know. What the hell is this competition against others?
Well, I don't
several years ago. Oh, I thought it was me.
Well, you're the reason it skyrocketed even more.
Technically, all of them, on both parties, have really helped the situation there. Majority of them cost for military spending too. So, I guess the Second World War was good.
Oh, that's okay. You can just stop right there.
No, I don't think you should. Thanks. We should probably stop talking about this. Political discussions are just too much of a slippery slope.
Not a slippery, it's mid-range. Or macro. Or very local about Donald's sources for us.
Then very local issue about liberty. The hell?
Oh, this is it.
How do you think you do?
Is Joe going from Savannah to Philadelphia?
No, I'm going straight to Parliament. Well, look at these swingers, but how in the world did you get that animation from that kind of awful analog skip control?
That reason they fill up in the hole, fighting for daily for the best.
It's very similar to that. Can we not do this? I really don't know much about this topic, and I'm not trying to do research, but we all have after science. The only thing that we actually hear going to point.
Well, I can't wait to see how you do that. Yeah. Sounds like a challenge, but possibly a rivalry. So, between the two.
That's like solid rivalry with everybody who can share it with Jack and whatever he is, and he still got with his kids on. I mean, that's my brother. His brother's a fucking idiot. Really has to tell people to clap for him.
Yeah, it's definitely, maybe not what it's just family.
Oh, and he did it. Boys, for years they were literally at the same IQ level.
I thought we were talking about this.
He may be smarter than all of you, and that's saying something. Why are we talking about that?
Because Donald's going to go back.
He sure as hell hasn't been anything you can do about. I heard you couldn't slip up and compare the invasion of Donald. Donald is going to be fine.
It's certain
Well, we got a board of it before you stir it. So, right, I'll get you. You're still awake by the time I'm done with George. All right, that's enough. I have everything on me constantly doing each other with. So you know what? Hold on. No, prove it better.
tension rising down at the feet.
Now the tensions are rising. I told you guys you shouldn't have played it sooner. All right, look at your therapeutic rate. It's very. You're all going to say one nice thing about each other. You know, trust me.
So it's on the plan.
No. What about after being honest? No, we're going to go around and do it, but it's not a you say something nice about the other. Now, there is it's bullshit. Now, see, that hit you. In fact, Donald can start. All right, I think I have to break this message. No, not about yourself, about the others. Whatever you have to do. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Where did that ever stop you?
Right. Fine. And I think he was very professional during the censure of college. Must have been nice. So, good. Anyway, looking down front. Thank you, Donald. That was very nice. Okay, whatever, your turn. No, now you have to.
If you now move on to the second hole, Donald stands alone at the top of the floor.
Okay, thanks. Donald, now you have to say something nice about someone else. No, the hell I do. All day. You only have so much energy left in the tank. Don't be trying to push your brother's Mickey in these, man. Donald, whenever you're ready. All right, well, I hope we should wait some time. I really want to play with Donald. What is that, really? Oh, yeah, fine. All right, Joe? Yeah. No matter how many times you fall down, I admire your ability to pick yourself back up. Even though you think someone else wants to get it, you still do get it. Oh, awesome. I'm so glad you did it, but I guess. Oh, wow. Hey, George, actually, I got a brainstorm one for you. That may take it. So, then, despite you sounding like five popular words, I think you're very sympathetic.
Think this will kind of change about the popular, but thanks, I guess.
And last, certainly, you got good stuff in store.
Good stuff.
That's one.
I'll take it. That's fine.
Good on. That's focus. That's bright. This is count. Stop.
Anyway, thanks for your time.
Nope. You need to go through the
Nice stick on. I would like to stay through it. More than an hour and a half for all of here.
No.
Whatever. You can try to keep doing. I'm just going to do it so fast. He doesn't understand. He's very smart and does whatever he needs to do and talk about it. Can't really just talk about it. Talk to the next one.
right? He's always talking about this hypothesis of the traffic. Here's a hypothesis. You mean my hypothetical? I was going to ask you a better behavior. So,
Donald, you know, you don't seem too fond of me or a dick towards my family. I want to thank you for attempting to summon us, Jeff. Poor guy just had some chance.
yeah. What's my...
Watch TV go on.
Oh, wow. What a shock of doors.
That sounded a bit sarcastic to me.
Wow, it's a lot of this is sarcastic. You're really expanding your vocabulary today, aren't you?
Very, I always appreciate your hospitality.
Oh, that's not
I hope you feel expected. So what else is all on this about you doing?
the hell is it? Technically, go home to come.
Just we're in the open home. It's still living on. Comes back.
Seems like he doesn't know how to drive either. Well, the Secret Service wouldn't allow him to speak to him. They do this drive with false phone, dumbass.
Oh, you want some help there? I want to drive.
No, my finger just slipped. Yeah, what happened? Your finger just slipped when you pressed that big button on your...
Leave the brakes and then close and stop. And stand close to the action. Relax and listen.
Your desk, huh? What happened then? Oh, I figured that.
All right, I think I got it in there. Oh, wait, you're pretty helpful trying to do that. Well, actually, I don't. But yeah, that wasn't the topic. Yeah, but that's why I didn't want. Okay, here's what I'm saying.
No, I want to do that.
It's fine.
All right, so you can do it.
Oh, you know what you said? I'm going to stop saying go one to stick.
Don't think too hard, Joe. Right, good yourself. That's what you want to do, man. Because I took a right to it. Don't worry, I'll keep on the short of city.
Now, okay, Donald, you are in the beach here. George, he's here. Barry and Joe. That's all that's here.
Well, it was not possible that those were obviously to secure those languages. I was from your video.
Yeah, but I updated it with Joe.
Then you put me in on the bottom here. How is that supposed to make us feel good about ourselves?
And be here, that's your better than you top here.
No, S is...
You're putting me in a second tier?
No, actually, the third is S. Then A, then B, then C, then F.
S does not come before A. It's straight from C to F. Dumbass doesn't get the yeah, but then that's the city here. That's where everyone else is from.
Probably just the Babylon being the story to America.
Actually, everything is straight up fact.
They're the worst back in the machine to become South America.
Facts don't care about your feelings.
Oh, it's simply
Am I the only one happy about my place in my dad's live? I mean, I thought we was going to rip me to shreds.
the fact you are one here underneath you, you're right next to the list. Look.
They do what I belong here. Who else is in our tier?
Let's see, Richard Nixon, Lyndon.
Well,
Yeah, I'm disgusted. I'm done with this whole thing. All right, Mike, I'm trying to do it. So it's done, Joe. Not damn it, Ben.
It all comes down to this, ladies and gentlemen.
The third one. That's what we did. Very what I like about you is that I always said so. But I do need to get this. Do you need me to call you a ambulance?
yes. What are you going to do? Oh, okay. That's quite a bomb. All right, so, bombs away. Man, I didn't even know your own strength.
Man, you weren't kidding when you said bombs away. They were almost casualties.
I was thinking first, David.
They're still with New York nation. Still happening to me.
We did that second earlier talking about each other.
Yeah, I didn't even get to go. Thanks, man.
You're just mentioning we're in the bottom tier.
Well, when it comes to my two, this is podcast. You don't want it on it at all.
Probably because you don't even know what a podcast is.
Actually, I do. Just when you catch your iPod. Oh, man, iPod. Talk about a blast in the past.
Hey, remember that one guy that made Donald and Diller say one night thing about each other?
So, you completely avoided being complimented my kids instead?
Sorry, but what in the hell will
I don't see what's wrong with the compliment you kids, though.
Because we perhaps say something nice about us. That's what I'm thinking. But you kids are a part of you. No, I'm all about being safe and building.
What do we take the picture of my display? Because I'm sure it's all wrong. Well, I'm going to show you the proper way to drive. Now, once you sit in the door to drive, does that really going to be fatal?
Yeah, to the squirrel.
Hopefully, you did not see that straight from George.
score.
If I remember the score card correctly, how many scores did I on the only one who was the same studio? You can remember it. Right.
Steven, what?
You think of a winner for the band? We're gonna fucking get here.
Well, tell me what you did for yours. It's like you misunderestimated theirs.
It was a hot shot to find. I'll look for you, man. Don't worry, I know you're too busy playing this piece right now.
Got you.
Say that, what did you have to do with the one we put you? Okay, man, how you felt? What else? You did the book. Oh, look, misunderestimated the mama. I don't know that word. But something invented by George Washington. Oh, never mind. You can get the whole thing. Look, folks.
But yeah, when you get this skill, originate the position.
George, this is. Alright, well, unless you're an abomination from Joe McDonald, they're not going to find you with George Wood.
You're all very stupid because you're all using the wrong one. Oh, yes? What should I use for Joe? What is doing with me? Okay, not now. It's there. This is
An absolute moonshot.
You want to come down?
And then you're Steelers down.
Yes, very much. 99% of the time, we just watch them sail to the end zone. I don't even know why it's still existing. Up and down, fast, fast. Like, just start the game at the 20 or 25 at this point.
We're apparently in football and fourth down. You want to punch it in or go for it on fourth. Remember, that Donald gets the ball right there.
Right, good call. I could probably put it safe. Well, what? No, we were just. Huh, good luck going from there, don't you? Oh, why is it still my turn? Oh, hello there. And how old is it? Yeah, too old. Cheers, Joe.
Any reason you could drill that poor woman?
But what happened to the whole thing? I don't think we wanted to drill.
You're not.
So McDonald, because of how back there when I was, you could get a bogey and still win.
We're comfortable with our doing. Yeah, let's go. Should I take that advice and not be a complete idiot?
Let us down the lead.
If you want to bet, then you're supposed to bet. Okay, but this I didn't feel spectating on all of you did.
To be fair, Joe was the only one that did.
No, I didn't. I didn't knock the wind out of it. And I was trying to hit the guy behind him. He was freaked out by him. Now you know how everybody people by his presence surrounded him. Shut up, dude. Well, boys, it's been fun. Thanks for the tweets. I've never had 26 minutes. Anyone who got told about it, they don't go out. They don't get to play it each game. I'll remember that next time in about 2020. Yeah. And I hate the game you play. What's this? That's what you play around over here. Good game, loser. See y'all next week again, same time for PGA Gourmet match.
We're not playing PGA back-to-back weeks. But we are going to do something next week. Maybe something fun and holidays. Here we go.
Yeah, and comment down below what game is next.
Oh, thanks for reminding me, Ben. Also, comment and Ben to the end or something.
What? I'm sure that will be in it. We're doing it. That's the other thing.
What the hell, guys?
We're getting out there. The country again.
Yeah, we know you are. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. We hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a Halloween. Still got the next weekend, Joe. Got one more week to go. Someone hasn't been keeping up with his Advent calendar. All right, I may have skipped ahead a bit with some extra chocolate pieces.
Well, thanks for watching, fellas. Hope y'all smash that like button. Subscribe.
Did you guys know that when you say those things, the button goes,
Smash that like button. Did it work? I don't know, Joe. We won't know until we upload it. Very big crowd to its feet.
sports stuff, all the cool kicks.
Well, this is
certainly going to be a topic, and it's one that I personally feel kind of conflicted about. Because obviously, if you've been following this channel for any sort of amount of time, you know that I'm a primary Canucks fan, a secondary Habs fan, and a tertiary Detroit Red Wings fan. And so, any sort of a conflicting thought between three of these teams always gets me going a little bit, and it makes for some interesting conversation. Today, we're heading over to the Detroit Red Wings and talking about some guys that could be coming in, some guys that could be going out, and where these leading guys think that they could find themselves, and whether or not it's actually worth it to think about them leaving.
My first percentage, that's actually decent, all things considered.
So, we're going to link in the description to a whole bunch of stuff. Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Well, starting out today's video, I'm talking about a guy that Kevin Allen writes about on Detroit Hockey Now that could be a fit for the Red Wings. Here's the dailies of 3 days ago, April 3rd. Could the ex-Red Wings player fix the penalty kill? Plus draft odds. Kevin Allen goes up there and talks about a very particular forward. The Detroit Red Wings understood what they were losing when they said goodbye to P.S. Suter as he opted to sign a free agent deal with the Vancouver Canucks. The next paragraph, it says, "The respected Suter." It should say they, I'm sure, based off of the context of the sentence. They respected Suter for the consummate professional that he is. The Swiss standard is a versatile forward. He kills penalties, he slides up and down lines, and is mindful of his defensive responsibilities. He is equally comfortable on a checking line or a scoring line. But neither the Wings nor the Canucks probably would have guessed that he would become one of Vancouver's leading goal scorers. With 22 goals this season, he is the team's highest scoring center. He is centering Vancouver's top line with DeBrusque and Besser. This comes after 4 consecutive seasons of being a model of consistency by scoring 14 or 15 goals. And this is true, but it lacks context. It's not really acknowledging the fact that P.S. Suter is not first-line center because they have a choice. He's the first-line center because Elias Pettersson and Filipino are both out, and there isn't really anybody else that's transition they could even physically think that giving that role to aside Teddy Woodard. You're not going to throw Neil Vermont to the Wolves as the first-line center. You're not going to give Max Sasson the spot there. You're going to go with the guy who has experience playing on a top line, and that is P.S. Suter. He was really good with Besser and Miller last year, a nice facilitator of play as a winger with those two American dudes. And now, as a first-line guy, I mean, there's been so much success P.S. Suter has had. He didn't do anything in the most recent game against Anaheim. Basically does today against the Vegas Golden Knights. Please do something P.S. Suter. I have fantasy of one of my 7 remaining active semifinalist teams. And 7 teams in the semifinals. You might think that sounds great, but only 3 of them are guaranteed to make the finals. The others are in a really tight race, and one of them is already like the other's no way I'm winning. So, realistically, I'm kind of guaranteed 3 out of 7 chance of making the finals. But unless, of course, one of the other opponents or something, or the final game or something, you're not going to really, yeah, it doesn't happen. But still, PSG is a big deal in Vegas. Anyways, the article goes on and says this: the Vancouver Prophet said Suter has been done super well for his ability to pull the team together. He has been a factor in transforming his control and his score, and the Vancouver season is 50%. And he's losing to Vancouver. If you say it's an easy decision for Detroit to take Suter this summer, then you're forgetting that he's a small-ish center and Detroit needs to get bigger. With Patrick Kane announced to break it, the Red Wings already have smaller players in key roles, so fixing the PK has to be a critical mission.
What if your marketing partner cares as much about your business growth as you do? Prefer Big Marketing. We're a digital marketing and web design agency located out of Spring, BC. We've been helping local businesses grow from big to mountain for 20 years.
Prevents top revenue with a top unfinished schedule. So, the Senators are proposing the idea of P.S. Suter heading back over to Detroit. This would almost be like a simple investment stock kind of thing for Suter, the man himself. He goes out there and says, yeah, I want a 2-year deal,
I'm not going to settle for the 1-year deal that Steve Eisenman is offering me in the 2023 offseason. And then he absolutely explodes this season. He's got 42 points, 75 games played, and 22 goals. Those goals are dollar bills the more he gets them because he's already approached his career high in both goals and points. There is a realistic world with the cap rising up and the crazy production Sooners had this year, where the guy gets, let's say, $4.5 or $4.75 million a year in free agency. And if the Sooner could not give him that money, I'm honestly okay with that. He's bringing a champion, keeping the top 6 guy in really any role. And we could play some meaningful defensive hockey in the bottom 6 if we really need to. Not to mention, being a part of a J.F. Truder that he's head of the day with Marcus Patterson, Adam Myers, Derek Silver, and some other guys over there. This Suter has shown tremendous value here. And if the Red Wings decided to go after this guy, then they'll say, fine, just prove yourself in Vancouver, we'll give you a contract that can help us because your play is so versatile and defensively efficient. Then congrats to Phoenix. Although, selfishly, I do think Vancouver would have it in that to re-sign the Suter as well. I do think they want to bring this guy back, especially considering his explosion of play with the absence of Patterson and Field. But ultimately, this is a pretty good player. I want you to have your thoughts in the comment section below there with what your feelings about Stevie Y re-signing, I say re-signing because he was already a week before, re-signing the Shooter in the offseason. Should he be
Thank you to Big Mom for sponsoring today's video. More on that later. Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate. And the violence of Skyrim are both the whole source of terrifying and foreboding. That, not to those frightening nightmares in the future fantasy solutions. Among these monstrosities just accurately stand out, and some of the real outlive. And yet, most of these views, fallacies, their appearance resembles that of an elderly woman, combined with the most disgusting elements of a brother. They're masters of the argument. These are the most passionate gifted opponents in space. And when they're not casting their own spells, their powerful qualities are just held up throughout many of Skyrim's dark and decaying forms and limits, but instead the witches prey on the flesh of active humans that are able to master them. And some hackers and those really only significant, and the most issues with the full form barbarian systems. And just in a special one, rather than bitten and feathers, the hacks of Skyrim are already above players can put in the battle. However, by digging up the right books, analyzing the events of Passover soul games, and putting them together, we can begin to discover that these werethrows are far more interesting than one could ever imagine. So then we take a look, and 5 things you probably didn't know about the accuracy of Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. But before we roll into the darkness of this game, we shall address it with a brief one from the fantastic portion of One Spot in this video. Right on Why Was You There? Something has just happened on the little streaming wireless audio products. It sounds just as, if not more sensational. Their everyday G25s are their juice and best model yet. Before you steal solutions carry 6 hours of battery life, a wonderful noise isolating design, more bass, and of course, the delivery. I'm just telling you. I've literally had a pair for around 4 or 5 months now, and they are just the most comfortable AirPods in the world. At least to me. Which is why I'm happy next round to work with them. They usually buy with 6 custom gel kits, so no matter how big and small it is, it's a little car. It can relish in this luxury vehicle. For the first time in my life, I can happily blast my favorite songs in my ears for 4 hours. Well, it's even up to 6 hours of drama that workout videos with food styles, event, gear high quality, and my whole time, I can also go little stuff markers in my ears for 6 hours. And by heading on over to myraycon.com/theepicH215 for the discount, you can share that. where at one point in time, biologically normal human beings will perform some dark, odd ritual that involves human sacrifice and becomes a grotesque burden human has today. Not only is it multiple statements and is it suggested by dialogue we have with its characters, we can in fact see it with our own eyes. The quest, repentance, centers around a young, disillusioned kid named Odysseus, who belongs to an entire clan of witches that help out the Joe-like calendar and the rich. Joining to the Odysseus informs the player that her mother and some of the other witches are working simply together to be sacrifices so they can become happy. This would all just too much evil for the young girl, so you ask the player to help her in destroying the flame. The question sadly doesn't dwell too much on the specifics, but it confirms that happiness are created to get ritual involving sacrifices. The real mystery is what's going on in this field. What those forces go to limit the action.
Oh, that is so pretty! Fuck yes!
The safety guards were seeing it was responsible for this. We're seeing it as the evil or the punchline shape, and it's a clear where it is, and where it goes. It's like the line is believed. So, even this law for mercy examining his feet, it stands to reason that he might permissible in this problem. Furthermore, the Companions Plus line even teaches us that some hack-ravens can turn people into werewolves. The reason the Companions inner circle all over is because they have hackers too. And if all that isn't enough evidence, there's a correctness we can find here's by the pussy on Gauss's full stop. Everything adds up. The trouble here is, though, that many hackers should be more involved of disparate data jobs. And the old school online uses features of these books that mention many of these worshippers of not foreseen, but maxima, sacred gods of the darkness. There is such a likely creative advocacy, and she doesn't have a thing for what's open to evidently being a creative slush of giant spiders to be born. Furthermore, she makes huge fan of cannibalism, something players of her days request no doubt loves them. And captivating just love to be stupid, and apparently sometimes angry. Additionally, today that human sacrifice to make deals with cannibalism is something that's very much out of character for her scene. He really just gives his powers away, simply taking one's soul to make up for it. But Nyera really likes to demand sacrifices. So this is true with his character. Oh, yeah, let's not forget Paragon, famous goddess of dreams and pestilence. He's heavily associated with paganism, which always present in agriculture. Maybe he has something to do with it. But at the end of the day, it's still up in the air who or what John's forces switches over to the action to become aggravated. It seems that James has been mixed with it, but even then, the benefit is disclosed in pushing information. Who dies is dropping the person, the mirror, something darker? Well, I guess for now, that's it. All the rest of it. Okay, no. That's what I do. This is a really fun coincidence. So, in this is an elderly woman, you can find living alone in Harrison's cabin in the forests of Baldwin. At first glance, she's an incredibly sweet thing. Releasing to her in every time you design it, saying, this is the whole. Don't need to bother yourself with it. You can make occasional mentions of appreciating your publicly. And it is one that is so frequented by evildoers and atrocities, it's nice to find a character who's so innocent. Or, it's not so innocent. Because if you enter the small cabin first, you look beside the bed, you find a small doorway. It is the cellar in her house. Enter this basement, and you will be stuck inside of arcane canvas, strange voices, human skulls, weird skeletons. At least there's no innocent old woman. She is a witch. Really, this place owns her. But once you alert to the cellar, and these will already stand before you, and you'll turn hostile, saying that she can't let you reach them. You know there's this stuff. So, it was a fear about it, or up to the middle. It really doesn't matter. But it's a good set of interaction that most people have with it. Experience people with, find out the people, and then fight her. That's that. What you might not know, though, is that this character may have a far deeper connection to the player. And if you're making it believe that you might even get your sister-in-law. Let you have to remember, it's one of the most talked about quests in all of Skyrim. It begins when you meet a strange man at a random tavern who will challenge you to a drinking contest. After you finish the player's last battle, only to wake up, possibly days later, have presumably gone on a drunken rampage that you know nothing about. The remainder of the quest revolves around your efforts to figure out what happened and put the pieces together. While you were blacked out, apparently you raided a couple of Devella, all the flies go to a giant, and notably, you noticed a aggravated thing. You might be able to see where it's going. At some point in your stoker, you marry a aggravated named Moira, and promise to be with her at which you throw in peace moments. But it might be advised just to try and forget about this whole matter and pretend it never happened. Unfortunately, it became a very expensive ring. That means that. So the final fortune to have with you is Moira, who actually will be back. When you do so, I'll be very upset. But you think you'll be in an entire hospital. It's a very wacky and hilarious affair. Oh, the start of game data revealed that one of that activated is utility ideas from the cabinet history. Yeah, they were related. In fact, if the player decides to build a team before the formula and someone's business continue to find, which is admittedly quite rare given the fact that it's possible that Mordra will then send hired thugs after the Dragonborn. So yeah, a niche is your future, current, or maybe ex-sister-in-law, depending on your marital status to Mordra. Now, without discussing Skyrim's big data, or giving that letter from Mordra after sending the news, there's no real way to know about this relationship. There's no one who leads you to gameplay, no dialogue, no anything like that. However, there is some evidence. If you return to the amongst all the photos, players can find insight. This note was written by me, addressed to one persistent intelligence, and in it, he urged the public to not reward and join him, become the Bella Witch, and promises that a third sister is only on the way. If reason, quote, tells you fear, why even hesitate? You can feel the power coursing through your blood. You have only to reach out and grasp it. Renounce that boy of yours and come. Come with me in the forest. My sister will be here soon. Together, we can form a prominent covenant, and your face will be rich. Thank you, George. Moira, of course, isn't mentioned by name here, but it's very likely that that third sister, who will be there soon, was first. And so, during the rest of Skyrim, not only do you have to slay your aggravated bride, but you can also slay your still human sister-in-law. Noted that the majority of half-races apparently can have children. This is an interesting fact that doesn't come from Skyrim, but instead of both titled A Life, Barbaric, and Brutal, which was introduced in the Elder Scrolls Online. It tells the tale of a young brother girl named Armin Stella, who was somewhere around the age of 7 to 10 when the story begins. Apparently, one day, she strayed just a little too deep into the woods nearby her home and was kidnapped by Forsworn agents. Fortunately, or unfortunately for Arvinis, the Forsworn didn't want to earn a ransom for her. Instead, they took her all the way back to their encampment in Skyrim and made her a servant. The remainder of the time, focuses in on Arvinis, 78 years ago, and then getting adjusted to the living thing with this Forsworn process. The plan she was now a part of was called the Protocol, and they were led not by a warrior or human chief, but instead by a hacker named Woken. This is a pretty important revelation to both makes in its own right, because it confirms that Hackrington not only can be aligned with the Forsworn, but can actually be spiritually leading their tribes around. Anyway, Forsworn was apparently no bachelorette. He was married to a decent man named Pointack, who apparently was some sort of stage-driven shaman of some capacity. Funnily enough, throughout the book, the author mentions that Pointack was apparently a jerk that no one in the clan really liked, but the poster consistently kept him on a leash and would punish him when he made mistakes, which is just kind of funny. Well, towards the end of the text, our servant girl protagonist, Archimedes, who has now been unwillingly with this plan for over 6 years, runs into a problem when the drug is pointing at, a boy called on-call becomes attracted to him and starts bullying him. The bullying gets progressively worse and worse, and Artemis is unsure what to do. As while normally both are actually pretty well responsive to trouble within the clan, mentions her son, he's not doing anything about it. A large book of everything really was excellent for the cliffhanger, and Artemis decides to take matters into his own hands and to start with a speed with us. It's fine if he has to kill himself, but again, this is where the book ends. We don't know what happened here. Nonetheless, this book proves that animators can have kids. Now, there are still some pretty significant questions, because if this is true, you have to wonder how these kids come out. Are they born as normal people? Are they born as aggravated themselves? Do they carry and take some of the traits of both of their parents? A large part of American Brutal doesn't give us a really good description of Octo and what he was like, only saying he was a boy.
I got that out. I got started in almost that first of the action. I didn't expect it progress, so I was really quick and almost like good. And now I've definitely replaced the investors.
Fine. Some players think that the aggravated violence is kind of a video in the school. It's less visible to the nothing of it, and all around it are a series of flags. It's close to the peak of that only specific aspect of the one of the flags belongs to the man named Code Breaker, who lives in some unknown amount of time ago. His entry was overkill mistake to death the powers of aggravators, allowing him to transform into the overthrow and attack his foes from a hundred directions at once. It might be actually notable that this one is intended to be controlled by those who utilize the powers of light. When Golden is using transformation powers in analog devices, a blinding light accelerates for a full leaving nothing in their place, but the food goes down instead. And that this programmer man was the son of a aggravator, and maybe those powers are the result of his biology. Or maybe he's the only example of a man becoming part aggravator. We're ultimately unsure, and probably won't have answers for a very, very long time. For what's fun, this video is all about aggravators, but we absolutely must bear word about their possible cousins, the Harpies. So one of the reasons why we have so much less information on aggravators as opposed to other creatures in Elder Scrolls 4 is that they have very relationships to the franchise with Skyrim in 2011. Thankfully, was reappeared as ESO and the Elder Scrolls card game Legends, but before Skyrim, we had no information of them. They were never good presence, some of the pixels. That said, a very similar creature popped up in the Elder Scrolls Daggerfall, and when again we appear in B12, it appears everything below upon his head is burning. Not only that, but in both games they appear in, they're capable of sport, and even like a gift with him. Even though, in both games, others don't speak the common tongue, or discipline. Instead, they either think of their own insane weird language. Interestingly, despite the ability to form more recent and seeing forward and again, it seems that most of our information about the backstory comes from Daggerfall, and those who purchased an individual copy of the game put their hands on a user's manual, and that user's manual contained a dictionary which describes each of Daggerfall's creatures, including the Harpies. This is what their entry regarding them has to say. Quote, Harpies. One of the greatest tragic stories told in Northern Episode is of the group of small and beautiful princesses who were transformed, or transformed themselves, if the legend is somewhat personal, into the hideous, deranged, acting Harpies. Whatever the truth is behind the legend, the Harpies are a true threat to life and promise along with the effect. They nest in abandoned ruins, mating it, and then destroying the unfortunate human males that captures them. While their maniacal nature makes them somewhat less than brilliant tacticians, their sharp talons and frenzied behavior often force humans to abandon lands for their use. Still, some Some say that the Harpies have knowledge passed on to them from the humans or others. Knowledge they may give, but not for you. End quote. So there's a lot to unpack here, but the other sister manual seems to be implying that puppies were created when a group of witches somehow transformed into them. Apparently nowadays they're able to reproduce and mate by capturing unfortunate humans, but nonetheless, their origins appear to be magical. But how do we know for a fact these things and aggregators are related? It's possible they might be praying for the same dangerous forces or utilizing the word of magic, but how are we absolutely sure? Maybe it's just a coincidence. Well, while ESO doesn't tell us a whole lot about them, when we find puppies, they're often in the company of aggregators. In fact, there's quite dozens of locations in the game that are structured in such a way that while most of the enemies encounter aggregators, the final boss will be a harvest. This is very significant because, again, armies don't really interact with any other type of creature. So the fact that they were communicating and working with aggregators is a big deal. There is a relationship between the two. Life is biological, but it's not, at least physical. Sadly, like so much else in this video, that relationship is shrouded in mystery. Are Pokemon really advanced powerful migrations? Maybe they're a strange spin-off subspecies of them. Or maybe it's possible that they're their own independent creature altogether. Whatever's going on here, only the heart can say. And finally, last over, we're ending this video with a good act. Just knowing that the Nordic movement of Dragonfly to look at one of my favorite unmarked locations in the game. Here, just about right out of the map, players define what needs to be an abandoned small four-story place. No one's at home, so it doesn't obvious people were here recently. You're free to move around and take whatever you want and head out. At face value, it doesn't seem like a very significant place. However, funnily enough, if the Donkey decides to break into a gem inside of one of the tents, after you've taken your and exited the inventory, as you leave, you'll find a tag raven walking back up to the camp, pulling back the player on site. Frustrated that it was screwed for days. And look at this close scrolling with tiny detail into this video, due to the fact that I only discovered this location like a couple of years ago when I started making videos. I've been playing Skyrim for somewhere around 5 years before I realized it, and this was blown away. The fact that it's on the far western edge of the map, unassociated and plus the dungeon, is probably what keeps most people like myself away. So, I just figured this was the first step. The more you know. And with that, we're going to wrap up. 5 minutes is probably they're going to do this on a spectacular. Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. Thanks so much for stopping by, everybody. Which of these bird-like facts are just going to keep you probably some most intriguing? And let's start and fall out of any other game-related negative shit. Check that below. As always, like ratings are very appreciated.
And ready for the right conversation. Your sales not a good answer.
From therapy, you're going to get prepared to eliminate splits without disrupting the self-business. There you go. I'll go. Yeah, let's make it. And the road up to the if you can general avoid on Skyrim because of those skills, but this settlement is home to some of the Cameron's proudest buildings, and at the capital of the Bay. The community here bears some of the hardest of the known rules of business. But thanks to Buffalo's trade and rich mining industry, it nonetheless blossomed. What is the limits of Skyrim settlement? It's no surprise that the Jarl has recently enthusiastically declared for bullshit storytelling, and is now fighting to break away from the Today, the people of this process can be up to debate whether these are the historic industry that old was the right to do. Divided, cold, and historic. No one everyone has ever played Skyrim. But there's one that the average person will ever discover. So take a look. And 5 things you probably didn't know about dog stuff. 2. No, 5 Skyrim. Well, tiger receptors of the flowers and looked open-worded literally fighting for their right to play. It wasn't open, and if one happens to be believed, it was very receptive. The some tiger receptors were rated. Okay, so you know I showed detailed detail on this channel with wireless contacts. This is definitely one of them. You see, long ago, in the late second era, before they played a god, contraception was a living, breathing human person. A general, then king, then emperor, who conquered the entirety of the known world. Literally, all of Canada was under his rule. He founded the Septon Empire, which, quite ironically, is the very same empire that people of stars are trying to get away from now. But I digress. Tiger substance, of course, didn't take over the world peacefully. No, it was through a series of brilliant military campaigns and conflicts. While most of this security is incredibly well documented, we have names and locations of individual battles, specific generals the Tiger's army that he really liked. We know everything. But how he ended up taking over Skyview is, well, really ambiguous in the game's rules. We know there was some military action in the district, but we're not really sure who he was fighting. Was Skyrim united at this time under a single high king to oppose high reception? Was it divided into individual city-states, some of whom opposed and some of whom supported? We're unsure. But there is a sealed book, which first popped up in the Elder Scrolls Rebuild, though it's still read in Skyrim, which documents the time period, and it indicates that the city of Dawnstar fiercely opposed contraception. The point where, if they had their way, they might have been able to stop his whole conflict in its tracks. The novel Ice and Titan, by Juno Julie Batista, was during one contraception campaign somewhere in northern Scotland. During this time period, he's at war with the war chief of a city called Dan Strong, or perhaps Don Strong. The book doesn't do a whole lot to clarify on this distinction, but seeing as there's no cities inside of called Don Strong, we can safely assume that that was the ancient name used for Don Strong. Anyway, the text itself isn't really an overview of contraception's campaign with a logical validity. Instead, it tells a story that centers on the struggles of what it was generated, of what it means to take. Evidently, while the Taylor was leading his army to enemy lines, on her way back from a meeting she didn't have with Tiger's baptism, her forces were ambushed by those war chiefs that done wrong. Luckily for her, she and a small personal bodyguard of around 5 troops were able to make it out of the chaos. So, it's implied that Tyrone was decimated. So here, the book goes on to document the Taylor remains a desperate attempt to get back to safety as they're being pursued by war chiefs. They hide abandoned forts, try to overmove at nightfall, make desperate rushes to evade the eyes of these warriors. All throughout the defense room, there's even meetings and dialogue with their fellow survivors, where she makes it clear that the war chiefs have done strong are some super competent fellows. She commends their strategic ability for being able to defeat one of her entire army, having brought guard. She mentioned an ultra powerful cavalry that's apparently the empire. And we're also to suppression that he and John Strawberry is what I call them, are giving the empire one half of a fight. Ultimately, the king and the small gang are able to escape, running over a frozen lake that our enemies can't chase her onto, evidently due to them having way too heavy armor. At this point, the book comes to an end, and not much more is said. Nowhere else in the entire Elder Scrolls universe is this specific conflict even mentioned. So if what that text says is accurate, and the name continuity sticks, it looks like Dawnstar was once one of contraception's greatest foes. I do wonder what Don Strong's fortunes would be if they knew that a few hundred years later, their descendants would be openly worshipping the guy they fought. No, it's all good for me. Next on the list, fast forwarding to modern-day Skyrim in the 4th era. Dawnstar the province is dominated by 2 monsters, with silver and the iron serpent. And it's the hilarious, though tragically imbalanced relationship between these 2 mind owners that I'm going to feel right now. Because owned by a pair of ex-spouses. Yeah, so even the most times, it's used to be very considerate. Although the North woman named Jacob was hired later from her ex-husband Lego on Quicksilver. Not a lot of context on what went wrong in this marriage is offered, however, it's very clear that Scott was a nasty man. So, characters that hate other stuff. And neither can go to the wilderness 2 minutes talking without trying to dunk on their former spouse.
Iron break their mind. We had twice as much time as those porkers over at Quicksilver Mine. And don't let anyone Iron breakers trying to work that Quicksilver Mine. And it's that kind of thing.
If you don't mind me saying it,
Well, that's just the contract that people were based in. Now, all portfolio contracts are anonymous, so it can't be it's paying to go to this. But let's be honest, it's obvious that Lego, her ex-husband, is the one responsible. And it's nothing to do. If you go and speak with Lego, he'll be his dad, enthusiastically happy that his dad is finally gone. So, it's where it is.
my wife really couldn't be good. I said I mixed that old shit with that.
This one thing starts to get serious, really tragic.
Here's why. Things and things and deadlines and other times. They could have gone.
If you decide to kill Lego, the husband, before you kill Lego, and then go ahead and speak with the woman, you won't be happy to exit there. Instead, well, she thought she was doing a job. She just loses it a way she never happened.
My husband Lego is dead. I never thought I would get that out so much.
And once the wicked genuinely hate faith, the point where he likely hired someone to kill her, or to celebrate that he could pretend. He is all things considered, he is really and now the same way he is doing. In fact, it's nothing really like having this. This is so really important. Let's talk about something less than scientifically, is what John Doyle so strong and ready. He defines science by his enthusiasm for an organization called the Mythic Zone. Long ago, the Mythic Zone was the major was a famous marine gang, God of Destruction. They were, in fact, both the Elder Scrolls for the primary attack. However, since that game, they've long been destroyed, and likely will become attacked. Well, Silas, whose ancestors evidently still with them, suddenly let the Mythic Dawn message die, and he's converted his home into a museum. We allow visitors to see various artifacts and sort of their history. But it's not Silas's museum that earned the spot in today's video. Instead, it's the man's nose. Yes, his nose, the one on his face. Bear with me now. It's not necessarily noticeable, especially by Star standards, and it's simply not. However, if you have the smallest, if not the smallest presets of any short character nose in the game, this is kind of funny, because Silas, his name, when translated from Latin, literally means snub nose, or tiny nose. The more you know. Poor Voice Box. The settlement of Dawnstar, in fact, got its own entire Elder Scrolls game, technically speaking, and the marketing behind it is hilariously misleading, which is ironic given how little people know about this game anyway. Way back in 2004, 2 years after the successful release of the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, Bethesda Game Studios decided to produce a couple of mobile games set in the Elder Scrolls universe. And one of those was the Elder Scrolls Travels Dawnstar. Longtime fans of the channel are likely already pretty familiar with this game, as I've talked about it before in previous videos. It's got some interesting lore. Set unknown time period, of course, in Dawnstar, the game evolved around a mysterious, blue-skinned humanoid people known only as the Ice Tribe, who are trying to besiege and capture the city. It would be up to the player to defeat this enemy by clearing a variety of odd, cube-shaped dungeons and safe attacks. Do bear in mind, this was a 2004 mobile game, so it was made for things like old Nokias and Blackberries and stuff. Not exactly the most technically impressive piece. What was focusing on, that I find really hilarious, is that one of the top ways to get my information on this title was its skill game. As the best in the parent company, it's never really seen a whole lot of external promotion. They don't seem to turn on any advertisements or commercials. So the store page was really a single source to official information on the title. And it was very sweet to see. See, it was on a natural level. Not only did it kind of stretch pretty, no, it told it straight up bluff. No.
The Grand State 60 classes in the First Nations Child and Family Services and Village Principal Settlement is now open.
Learn more, find support, and submit your claim at fnchildpage.ca.
One of its biggest promises is guaranteeing that you can play the service the way you want, for good or evil. This is a total lie. There is a single campaign one can go through, and in it you're very much a good campaign. There are no bad guy objectives for missions, nothing like that. And there's certainly no equal player's choice. You don't get to make decisions in this game. There's also the guarantee that as your character is really comfortable, so is your opponent. Looking at some sort of leveling mechanic where your phone is leveling it. That just doesn't exist. Your enemies are always the exact same strategy. I couldn't go through this. There's a bunch of these things. And even some of the ones that are true are only like kind of true and kind of exaggerated. Let's just say that the game that Stormbase is telling you about and the one it's asking you to buy are two very different things. But despite this relatively harsh indictment I'm doing defense of it, I'm willing to bet that this marketing probably wasn't sponsored. It's possible the person who wrote this development page never got a chance to play it or just wasn't going to team it. Back in this time, the editing standards were a little bit over. It's also quite possible that despite their name being on the box, the game didn't have a lot to do with development. At this period of time, many developers and companies were outsourcing to small third-party studios and came for them to make accommodating things with their names on it. That is what happened here. And whoever made the small game was not even employed at Bethesda or was working at Bethesda but didn't really know what was going on with development, and there's a whole litany of possibilities. One of those things were also simple. Just know that before the Fallout 76 controversy, before Skyrim became marvelous for the enforcer, there were lots about dumb stuff. And finally, last one of this, Sirius, a vendor, is a slightly son in the north-filled city of Dawnstar, this part of the Skyrim. A walking criminal, who's a regular born hot, desert province of Canada. She grew up in Canada, and always thought it was where she would die here. However, one day, her father, a blacksmith, devoted a perfect from Cyrus, a Nordic Russian. The two quickly fell into madness. One thing led to another. They got married, and when first week stood up at his class, he returned back to his hometown of Dawnstar, where the two now owned and operated a blacksmithing business. This is an interesting and well-fleshed-out backstory, even despite a high standard set by Skyrim. So something else that makes Saren a very, very special character, and it's something you wouldn't notice unless you got the fucking the dialogue. They eventually want to hold typically all the dialogue. That's great. It really doesn't bother to make a really big deal about this fact, but it just needs to show one of the possible reading dialogue is this.
We discovered recently that I have time. I'm going to stop working next season.
The following friendly conversation and diversion they can be looking up for their responsibilities. Where they
What? Look at this entire this war. War of violence. It's not my war. It's people's war. It's one thing you can do to stay here.
And, well, let me think about it. Relax. The next time you're on a rampage in John Star and murdering all the citizens to death, just know that, like Sarah, you're very poor and just for and with that, you're going to wrap up. 5 minutes you probably never knew about the chilling city of Dawn Star. It's the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. Thanks so much for stopping by, everybody. Which of these fun facts or tiny details did you find to be the most fascinating? And what's Skyrim will fall on this end of the game to create the dog that we get tackled? Leave a comment down below.
Let's do this in fact. Eliminate stern, figuring the sleep behind. Let's on like this.
Lego, are you ready to piss off the entire state of New Jersey and maybe even other parts of the metro New York area with this video? The answer to that is absolutely, because this is a war. This, right here, between Vancouver and New Jersey, is a war for the ages, a generation-defining conflict that we will have to witness unfold over the next few years. And today, we're talking about Jews. And an idea brought up a few years ago on, I'm pretty sure this was the Booth show on Sports Into 50 by Brendan Batchelor. If you haven't seen it in the Booth, it's under the Canucks Central label of the podcasting asset you have. But essentially, it's Brendan Batchelor's show. He's on there with Randy Candace sometimes. And instead of calling the Vancouver Canucks game like they usually do on Sports Into 50, they talk about the TradeDeadline analysis and they discuss some ideas revolving around the team. And the other day, Brendan Batchelor had a really interesting take. You're not going to get these takes, Canucks sub, and read yesterday's pre-game thread. It's New Vancouver and the Anaheim Ducks. And we're going to comment on it by TradeDeadline. This is here just because the idea is pretty audible and you don't have to go and transcribe the audio of the podcast and read it here. Man, Brendan Batchelor's hot take yesterday was hot, Dino88 says. How to convince Quinn to stay is to offer sheet blue years and make it super pricey. If it succeeds, force Jack to come here to me. Oh boy, baby. We have been speaking about the idea of an offset sheet on this show because there were a few articles and stuff written by athletic folks talking about how this could be the quote-unquote summer of offset sheets because the cap is rising. Last year we saw all of them and Grover get off their field by St. Louis and now they're doing amazingly well. Carrying this blue team into a 12-game winning streak. Not saying the concert can happen again next year and whichever team acquires the new player is going to go on a 12-game win streak to take over Vancouver, Calgary, Utah, Blackhawks and make the dance, but the idea is floated out there. Now, we did have some pushback too. Kieran LeBrun said on Twitter that because the cap is rising, it can't necessarily be concluded that, oh yeah, the cap's rising, so more offer sheets are going to get it. It's going to be like, oh, the cap is rising, so whatever offer sheets that it's signed, it gets matched. Because there's more incentive for teams to do that. So they're going to lose their guys, and the cap is rising, so why not just match it? The Edmonton Oilers would be doing really well. They have Dylan Holloway on their team right now. But that's besides the point. Whether or not Vancouver gets their toes speaking of an offer sheet, that's something we already discussed this well. Could change with the Turka of the Buffalo Sabres, who's right for that. We already know that's concerned. earlier this week about that. But Luke Hughes is one of these names, and I think a lot of folks would not immediately think about in regards to an offer sheet, like, oh, you should get an offer sheet for a guy that might be in a tough situation, or a guy who's not really being given any loans from his team. Again, the Kirk Buffalo is included in trade talks and stuff, so there's more reasonable path for JJ Paterka to go down the offer sheet route. But for Luke Hughes, there isn't really anything there that I think incentivizes the guy to sign an offer sheet, unless whatever offer sheet he gets is for a significant pay raise that the Devils would be wary to go out there and match. Luke Hughes is 21 years old, coming off of his ELC, and this season with the New Jersey Devils, he had scored 42 points in 67 games played on. This for 46 in 72. Do the math over 82, and he would have been on pace for just over 50 points. So, pretty reasonable, kind of similar to what he did last year as a rookie with the Devils. But Luke Hughes has been a very solid, hot-moving, mobile, quick-footed defenseman who happens to be the biggest Hughes of them all at 6'2", 198. Luke is a top two defenseman in the making, and I'm not going to say that he's going to be better than Quinn. I know there was a conversation we had like 7 years ago discussing whether or not Luke was the best one out of the three, but that was mostly because he outproduced the other two as a D-man in younger AAA leagues. But ultimately, Luke Hughes is willing to define the New Jersey Devils blue line.
What if your marketing partner cared as much about your business growth as you do? It's your first big market. Your digital marketing, web design, located in Abbotsford, BC. We can help with local businesses grow.
But if you wanted to argue at this stage, it's not like he has been playing like a true number one this season, and that's okay. He's still very young, and he's still growing and developing, and there still are other guys on the Devils' blue line that you could say are supposed to be better than him, like Doug Hamilton, for example. While it's true that he has been more than serviceable, better than the majority of the defensemen that suit up for this team, I don't know if it's fair to say that he's necessarily earned number one D-man money at this point. Dougie Hamilton, as we mentioned, he's making $9 million a year. Are you willing to go that far with Luke Hughes at this point? If Vancouver decided to dip their toes into it, they said, hey, we got two Elise Petterssons and a Marcus Pettersson, we got a Quinn Hughes, why don't we get a Luke Hughes, and then get a Jack Hughes later on. There is a chance that this idea has popped up somewhere along the line within the Vancouver Canucks organization. Obviously, it would be an idea, yeah, let's get all three Hughes brothers, but just thinking about where you could do that. The offer sheet Luke Hughes would make huge trades, even money that you wouldn't have seen in New Jersey. The Devils have $5.9 million in cap space, and if you really wanted to put a stranglehold on that team, there is a possibility to do that. Just saying. Let's just go back over on the Reddit and read what some of the other commenters say. Why would Luke want to sign the offer sheet, though? He's well on his way to becoming Devils number 2. If he comes here, he'll have a win and goes shot. That's true. Very, very true. And ultimately, I do think so. That these two guys, they put so much emphasis on the brotherly connection between them that I don't even know if I really think of that as an obstacle. Like, Luke Hughes is not going to be in Jack Hughes' shadow in New Jersey. Like, I get it, they're not the same position. It's so different circumstances, but like, still, Luke Hughes, for as good as he is, I think there's still going to be that impression, oh yeah, he's Jack Hughes' younger brother. He's Jack Hughes, the number one center's sibling. Not that that's bad, but I'm just saying, I don't know if that's really that big of a deal for the Hughes brothers in particular. They've been so close as three guys over the years that I don't know if really saying that, oh, he'd be in Quinn's shadow is that much of a deterrent. I don't know. That's just my opinion. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Is Jack considered their franchise player now? He's on a very team-friendly contract with term. It'd be tough to get him before he's an RFA. We could give Quinn the same terms so their contracts end the same year and then offer them both the world to play here. I'm not sure the fans could stomach losing a first and overpay for Luke Hughes right now. Brendan Batchelor's take on the program was to do whatever it takes to get Quinn to stay. And to get a family member here would definitely do that. If it fails, You force New Jersey to overpay to match the price and put them in a hole. It also shows Quinn that you're doing whatever it takes to overspend and get family here. That's a good sign. And then there's another conversation as to whether or not the Canucks should have traded Pedersen to get both of the Hugheses or whatever, if that's even possible. So ultimately, this is one of these thoughts that I think we do need to acknowledge just because of how crazy it is and how empowering it would be for Vancouver fans to get such a leg up in the Hughes sweepstakes. I don't think it's too hot of a take to say at this moment in time, Quinn Hughes is the best Hughes. Jack is great, Luke is on his way, but Quinn just won a Norris, and he could have very well won the Hart this year if he had just played the whole gosh darn season. So Vancouver doing whatever it takes to get this guy to re-sign with their team and bring him back, yeah, of course, I'm on board with that. If it costs the first, the second, the third, an arm and a leg to get an offer sheet done for Luke Hughes, so be it. Grab that guy. Get another 40-point defense.
Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nick. And Skyrim is a land thoroughly peppered with ancient Nord ruins and deep dark caves, offering fortune seekers and curious explorers nearly infinite opportunities. But to make it through these strange depths will require more than just a mere proficiency in navigating, as nearly every one of Skyrim's dungeons is populated by the Draugr, disgusting, decomposed, undead, monstrous beings who fiercely guard Tamriel's darkest corners. But there's more to these giant sacks of rotting flesh and bone than men meet the eye, and there's much of interest to know about these beasts that isn't made very apparent in a normal playthrough of the game. So today we'll be taking a look at 5 things you probably didn't know about the Draugr of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Starting off, Draugr are believed to act as the guards of the various tombs and dungeons they inhabit. However, believe it or not, that's just one of their many, many functions, most of which we never get to see. The book, Amongst the Draugr, was written by a researcher at the College of Winterhold named Bernadette Van Dien, and in it, she documents an experiment she conducted, wherein the author infiltrated a large Draugr-filled tomb and spied on its inhabitants, before eventually, the lowly, earning their trust and convincing them to stop attacking her and treat her like she's one of their own. According to Bernadette, much to her shock, she discovered that when the Draugr aren't sleeping or fighting off explorers, they're usually maintaining the tombs they're in, cleaning, making repairs, and apparently they even spend considerable time praying to those buried. We know that thousands of years ago, back when dragons still ruled over men in Skyrim, many of the leading figures in this time period chose to be buried in tombs with their still alive followers. And Bernadette theorizes this is the reason why. They have a mini army dedicated to protecting their tomb and keeping it nice and tidy, while also worshipping their corpse for all of eternity. Now, it's still left somewhat unclear how exactly a Draugr is created, or what the necessary process is.
Right now, really,
There are Draugr that found in belonging to folks not associated with dragon magic. If those guys also anticipate having an undead slave force serving them in death, it's not made certain, and our next detail actually concerns another sort of theory/myth. But whatever the case, it's clear that the Draugr of Skyrim are far more than just warriors. Next on our list, while they are one of the Elder Scrolls V's most iconic antagonists deeply associated with Skyrim, the first time we ever actually got to encounter a Draugr in this universe was viewing the Elder Scrolls III Morrowind's Blood Moon DLC, which took us to the ash-covered island of Solstheim. In this DLC, we could find a number of Nord ruins, and inhabiting them were, of course, these gross, zombified creatures. However, the way the Draugr of Solstheim, nor did it seem they had quite the same attachment to the dragon cult as their mainland cousins. Well, the Skull Nords of Solstheim argue that the Draugr which infest their island aren't the product of some strange dragon cult ritual magic, but instead something far darker. They claim that all the zombies of their island were created when a fellow tribe of Skull Nords, or long ago, somehow tracked across the island's various groups, all at the same time. Starving with no way out, these desperate Nords...
Oh, wow, I didn't get fuck Pedersen on his team, dude. That'd be sick, actually.
As well as occasionally eat their living comrades. Disgusted, the Allmaker, basically the Skull's monolithic god, decided to punish these cannibalistic Nords by dooming them to live a life of eternity with a never-ending hunger for human flesh. Thus, the Draugr of Solstheim was created. Now, this explanation of meteor blood moon brings us to a lot of unanswered questions. For one, how did so many Nords get trapped into ruins all at once across the island? Were they possibly deceived by some entity? Additionally, something else to point out is that the Draugr of blood moon are much faster and more aggressive than those Skyrim. Their eyes also glow red instead of blue. Is it possible that despite some similarities in what we call them and how we identify their names,
I need to get rid of that cat, though, to acquire him.
might have similar sounding names, the Draugr of Skyrim and Solstheim are two entirely different creatures. So, when we visit Solstheim again, Dragonborn, all the Draugr are totally normal. So, maybe it's just a design change by Bethesda. Wherever the truth may lie, just know that there's apparently more than just one. There's a skeletal zombies that enter around the world. Now, look at that briefly. One of Skyrim's most common dungeon puzzles are the law unique, well, doors that can't be opened unless you have access to the specific dragon law that came with the proper code that comes to quote actions simply. Now, not actually a whole lot that's truly puzzling about it. Well, it's not that they require an extra loop to find it. The time to use the open the door is always on the key itself, which sort of renders the whole piece and inputs the problem pattern relatively pointless. I mean, no matter what, you'll always have a
Very.
Well, something that you may find fairly interesting is that the reason puzzles are so open is that according to the game's lore, they were never designed to or how to subject to the first place. Instead, they were only meant to hold the Draugr and keep them inside. This is close to the in-game book, Definitely Monsters, which, believe it or not, centers around Draugr. Well, exactly. But as I was digging on that lore, I figured it out. The Draugr are relentless, but far from clever. Once I was down, they continued shuffling about. To no end. No direction, bumping against one another, the wall. So it seems between us enters another block. Just so you see the person enters was actually alive and had a functioning body. And the doors were never meant to keep people out. They were meant to destroy them. And that's his point and ominous explanation.
There we go. I got that first. Yes.
On now that Solstheim, within the Temple of Mirak, we can find one of these doors. But it's destroyed, broken into various pieces, as if someone had trouble figuring out the puzzle and just decided to break it open. Many have proposed that this might be Bethesda's way of humorously implying that Mirak isn't a very intelligent character. We know his great temple wasn't entirely built by him, that he discovered part of it and then continued to build on. Some suggest that maybe Mirak, after discovering the temple, could have kidnapped one of these doors and just decided to break the whole thing down in frustration. As mentioned, this temple longer is in fact a short story that's all about the story. And it doesn't tell our characters, but it's seriously found its flaw and set out to figure out what exactly its purpose was. It's a good book. I've read it all, but we're over time, and it doesn't really talk about anything else. Anyway, Roger are the reasons short and flaws are a thing. At least according to the development. Moving on. For Fort Spot, while we're still looking at the structures of the dungeons the Draugr inhabit, I want to take a look at this interesting little statue. It can be found in a number of overbuildings, both on Skyrim and in Solstice. No one's really sure who exactly this is supposed to be a statue of. Who's the mysterious figure representative? Is it just some unnamed people? Is it a legendary king, perhaps? Is it a god? Well, hilariously, it seems like the answer is none of the above. You see, this is what the default source that looks like in the Elder Scrolls 3 orally carries their creator. And it's almost the same person. This wasn't modeled after some famous figure or something. No, it's based off of the role character creator. I'll admit these details isn't necessarily associated with the Draugr, more or less just the places they live, but regardless, I think this is hilarious detail, and really what the excuse of it is. So, and if I could last a minute, let's talk a little bit about the red named Draugr. The players encounter at Red Oak Fair during the climax of the quest, the legend of the Red According to the game's lore, thousands upon thousands of years ago, the region of Skyrim, they know as the Building, was once its home to the kingdom. And one of its final kings was this man, the Red Eagle. While beloved by his people and subjects, the Red Eagle's reign was a very tumultuous one. As the Eagle Empire produced itself, especially in the East and intensive conflict. For its years, the Red Eagle led extensive and still somewhat effective guerrilla campaigns that kept the invaders at bay. However, unfortunately, he grew weaker and physically and eventually, with few options and refusing to let his people down, the Red Eagle made his shield with a cabal of aggravated women, who quickly transformed it into a second creature known as King Briars. They would replace his heart with a Briarheart Platinum and gave his hand, his soul, and his will. In exchange, granting him the ability to continue his mind. And as a Briarheart, the Red Eagle did just that for many, many more years, until the Empire finally just sent more than he could handle. The tales say that finally one day, the Red Eagle, alone with no armor, was pinned down by an entire legion of 1,000 soldiers. While he was able to slay most of them, the overwhelming force just proved futile, and the Red Eagle himself was eventually defeated. The fate of the Reach too was swift. It would now be a province of the Empire. Soon after his defeat, the Red Eagle body was found by the sympathizers, and laid to rest in a tomb. According to them, for a brief few seconds, he came back to life, using the last of his energy to tell his people to continue to struggle, to continue to resist imperial occupation. And one day, when the invaders were finally driven away and the Reach was restored as independent, only then did the people return to his city and give him back his sword to come back to life and be fully. This is how the story is generally. In Skyrim, all you really do is find a unique sword and you just go to the Red Eagle tomb and it's like, that's pretty much the extent of our interaction there. However, if you know that it is clear a couple of hundred prior to events of Skyrim, someone else had very similar, and this someone that actually seems to be the very creature that the Red Eagle is awake in the first place, what we do with him in Skyrim. The series of books, which runs 3 volumes, The Red Curse, were headed by a Brighton noble named Thor Yen. And the tale they tell is an incredibly hilarious and frightening one. According to the Thor, the events of these books take place when he's roughly 10 years old. Growing up as a weak boy in a noble Brighton household, he never left his family's manor house. Instead, he kept to stay home and surround himself with books and stories. One of his favorite ancient legends was that of the Red Eagle. Despite not being from the rich himself, the Paul was incredibly moved by this man and grew to identify greatly with this evil character. So much so that he wanted to fulfill that prophecy. He wanted to take the Red Eagle sword back to his people and awaken it, so he could rule over the East once more, and hopefully take the sword to his side. And so, for years, the boy made this his life's objective. He dabbled into the dark arts, learning all sorts of things and looking forward to getting information on where the Red Eagle was and how to bring it back. Eventually, he discovered the location of the two, and when he went there for himself, he found the Red Eagle's sword there. He then heard the Red Eagle call out to him telepathically, asking to place the sword next to his sarcophagus. The boy had walked, and when he did, the robber finally awoke, for the first time in centuries, though he could not be kind to his soul.
No, listen to the hacker. Instant answer doesn't guarantee safe attention. It's indicated 24/7 to practice every coverage.
Immediately after awakening, he laughed at the child and attempted to kill him, claiming that he was no kid of his. Somehow, in the chaos, the twin was able to knock the eagle down and grab the sword before running out of the tomb. While making his desperate escape, a mechanism figure behind him, once again trapping the eagle inside of the tomb. And on his way out, he lost the sword. Eventually, the boy was taken home, and that would be that. That's how the story ends. The author finally states that this was his greatest mistake ever, and now he lives in his study in total fear, frantically searching throughout ancient texts, trying to find a way to right the wrong he created, claiming that now that he's awoken the Red Eagle, it'll only be a matter of time before some silly adventurer stumbles into that tomb and lets it go for good. Of course, thousands of years later, his world would be proven correct. But lucky for him, that silly adventurer would be the dragon. And rather than let the Red Eagle go, we destroy them and put an end to any sort of shenanigans. Whatever the case, while any sort of crisis was ultimately averted, it's quite the way to know that the reason the Red Eagle will once again in the first place, the reason why there is a crisis to begin with, is all because some silly friend boy a few hundred years ago decided to go fascinating. And not Skyrim related, or really any other game related trivia, you know what, that is that. You comment down below. As always, like buttons are very much appreciated. Again, thank you a lot. And I hope you get to see in my next video. Peace out, everyone.
All I need is to go to the best with the thing.
I'm definitely ready. I love this game and notice that all the links in place, so I need to do this.
So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Okay, let's again.
All I got to do is look at these things to go before we start like always.
Go for it.
This will be playing in the Pirate Code Court. It is once again set the set holders and once again collision mode is on. You still got what's going to be also the color package. So there is no need for you to say it ahead of time. But you think dynamic goes to work? Hopefully you can get something ahead of time. I just forget everything. Excuse me when they make a slow so you get nothing. Just because you can see a one day switch. Oh, you know what's funny? Respect. I don't care for what you have to say. That's good for us. Don't let players force you with it. Definitely. I don't want to try to keep position so I can shoot my whole rest of the game. That was a pretty bad response. I don't want to go to like me. Then you have to take risks. Well, I'm definitely capable of taking risks. I'm sure. What in the world would you not say?
What in the world is
That's exactly what you're going to lose there for the end.
already purchased over the I will play this damn.
I would mess up if you call it safe shot. I'm satisfied. Once again, that's a lot of talking for the four. Let's see what you got. Well, I'm not dumb like Donald and Joe. I would be smart and take the safe path without messing things up. It's kind of hard to mess things up when you have the advantage of seeing what it is beforehand. Well, I will continue to play it safe so I can complete this whole thing.
There's nothing special about that shot. I never said that. It's just for doing that. You have a way of pushing our words up there forward. Ain't that the truth? It's too early for the truth, right? That's the thing. It's too early for you to be talking this stuff. I'm just going to focus on myself here and make something great happen. Watch this. Bam! When did you ever learn to stop talking, Don? I'm serious and playing like complete garbage. I wish you take your own advice. I told you that I don't need to do that to try and go. You'll have to make some stop. That's essentially the same shot the Rock did you instead of something special. But all of a sudden, your shot is something special. So that's really good. Well, I think that's going to be getting off to the beat for me. Only 3 attempts to the first hole. Yeah, that means that. So there's not much I can do except to just clean myself and get better at the game. Good shot, Don. I still have golf with your friends and this. Those 2 games are still there. Okay, but what's your strategy here? I need it. Joe was in my way. Well, that shot didn't benefit you one bit. Oh, really? Joe will still get it in the return. I definitely will. Joe is here for your analysis. You got this, Joe. You're not doing player 4. That's a good shot, Joe. There you have it. Joe's daddy for one of the encouragement. Seriously? Joe's daddy number 2. Congratulations on completing such a good shot. I think you take what you said, player 4, and all I know is that I'm going to first position for the second look. I never did. That was such a goated shot. But Joe making a shot like that is easy, but an easy shot like this is goated. Or that's Joe. Okay, well, I guess that concludes the first hole. It's about that time. Because Donald is fast with 5 attempts for the first hole. Start it! It's not about how you start, but rather how you finish. I guess. It is the mentality of play. Let's see what you got, Donald. It's looking strong. Whoa. And once again, my analysis is correct. Donald is fast. Listen to me, boys. Respect me. Well, unfortunately, that's what he's most likely to do in the lab round. Sounds like a bunch of excuses to me. It's really not so, but whatever. Well, take my own go to don't think you're good now, but just do something that simple. Once again, switching my words to taking garbage assumptions. For real, hurry up with your turn. Well, my turn, like always, is going to be productive. Look at this amazing shot for us. Why do you keep calling us your boys if you keep acting like this? Stop being so buttoned after the hole. We got what we need now. Don't worry about player 4 guy. I'll enjoy the guys. I will replicate what you did because that's my only option. How's that option? Wait, what? Are you serious right now, bro? Literally moving me off the hole. Why do you have to target me? I'm not targeting someone trash like you. I'm just replicating what the Rock did. And that's perfectly fine, Joe. I'm literally doing the same thing. Well, you basically almost made it in there, Don. Almost doesn't mean anything. I'm curious to see what happens to Donald and I when it's your turn, Barack. Will you get yeeted off? Well, I guess you'll have your answer real soon. Hurry up and mess things up. Well, I'm going to put in a little less than full power, but not 3 bars like Donald. Good shot, Barack. I guess you didn't eat us off after all. Nice one, Barack. Are you guys forgetting about me? Nobody cares about me. Get you all off the course. I don't think that's even possible based on the placement of the ball. I guess I put you all wrong. Not a chance. You were way off to begin with, and there was no way of you pushing us off anyway. Okay, I don't need to push you guys off to display my greatness. Well, you just happened to be in my way, player 4, so I got it. You out of gas. That's an amazing shot, Joe. Hell, it's super productive if you ask me. Yeah, player 4, you see kind of an interesting team, and they screwed you off. I'm Joe to George, and I will win this game regardless of your guys. That's a good shot, Donald. Thanks, Joe. I'll definitely be able to finish this hole up next turn. So much Let's see if you and Barack can do the same. Well, I plan on doing just that, Donald. Well, okay, I see you, Barack. I need to replicate that so I don't fall too far behind in the first place. Screw you off. What's my greatness? What the hell? I think he's losing it, Donald. He's starting to crack, and eventually he will come around after he finishes getting spanked and golf with your friends. I told you, I'm not getting spanked in this game. Well, the score will say you're getting spanked once this hole is finished up. I highly doubt that. That's a good shot, Joe. We'll all be finishing up the hole in our next turn, huh? Yeah, except for player 4, though. I'm being toxic. What is this behavior? You're just matching your energy. What happens when you try being toxic? Oh, really? Go to George on top like always. Stuff like that happens, Donald. Just don't let it choke you. Yeah, sort of like player 4 was leading the team with you. You guys are starting to talk too much. You talk too much? You literally saw what happened to Donald when you talked. You guys should be humble. Ain't no way in hell you're telling us to stay humble. For real. Well, I back my game play up. Donald isn't. So, yeah, stay humble. All right, well, I wasn't going to get that shot up, Donald. Let's see what the scoreboard looks like after this hole. I guarantee that you will be in last place, Donald. Well, it's only the second hole. So much can happen from now to the end of the game. What did I tell you? I told you that you would be in last place, Donald. Respect me. I am goated. Who the hell says they're goated when they're in third place? It's fine, Joe. I just need to concentrate on this shot right here. Damn right you do. Or else you'll mess something up. That's a good shot, Donald. Thanks, Barack. I'll probably replicate that when it's my turn. Of course you have to do that. Shut the hell up, player 4. I wish you're probably going to do the same thing. I can't think of any other options. Donald had a productive turn, so why wouldn't Barack want to replicate that? Facts. Well, like Donald, my turn is just as productive. Okay, stop patting yourself on the back and just copying someone. Be original, would you? Okay, so what's your strategy here, player?
just going to shoot the ball straight.
After all this, you said too.
Okay, this is the definition of meat riding, ladies and gentlemen.
Like hell it is. This is the definition of you being hypocritical. For real.
Now that our first turn is over with, what's your approach here, Donald?
I'll probably just shoot straight ahead with 75% power or something. I don't want to try anything too risky.
No surprise there.
Here we go again.
Those individuals try risky things. That was a good shot, Donald.
Yeah, I wonder if I could have got it in had I put in full power, but I doubt it.
Yeah, who knows? I'm not going to try it.
Of course
I will once again replicate you, Donald, since your wasn't been working this entire time.
That's fine. Do what you got to do so player 4 doesn't win.
Seriously? More complaining this is all so you can just prevent me from winning? I told you that we're going to spend this team up to beat one player.
It's not teaming up.
Whatever, watch me. Well, I'm on it. And I saw you fail this time.
For real.
What is it that you wanted me to watch player 4? My comeback. What? I want you guys to watch this comeback that I will be making.
Yeah, well about that.
Don't you dare do it.
So I gotta
Damn.
Once again, Joe, that was a super productive turn.
Good luck, Joe. That's karma for targeting. How is Joe targeting you?
For real.
He was in front of his ball. He couldn't do anything about it. Well, if he was goaded like me, then he could have.
All right, how about you focus on yourself, player 4?
Don't tell me what to
You're all
do.
the way back there while Barack and I are finishing at the hole. Nice shots, guys. Let's see what you got, player 4.
Well, I'm just going to reposition myself so I can aim straight ahead without falling off. Okay, for once, player 4. Not a bad turn.
I'll probably do the same thing since I can't aim straight without hitting the option.
Okay, that was a trash turn, Joe.
Wait, what?
You should have done something more than that. Instead of talking, maybe back watch this play.
What the hell was that? You are literally falling apart right now, player 4.
I don't think I need to say anything. Then that turn of yours just sums it up.
All right, let's see if I can prevent that from happening for my team.
Newsflash, it won't. You're garbage. You're trash. You're not loaded.
Well, well, well.
I don't want to
Joe was
hear
able to get the ball across even though he had a bad angle.
Fact.
What about your player 4?
Stop wrestling greatness. It takes time. Seriously? Greatness? You're probably in last place right now. Through that obstacle. It didn't do what I wanted it to do.
Then do better.
Now I have to spend 2 more turns finishing the pole up.
Seems like a skill issue to me.
Okay, shut the hell up, Donald. Your weight is a skill issue. Anyway, that was a solid shot, General.
Thanks, Barack.
You were pretty close to getting it in there, but at least you'll do so next time. Okay, well, I'm doing the same thing. Where's my praise, huh? I'm goated. I'm great. I'm amazing.
You expect praise when you literally just said that my weight is a skill issue?
Nice shot, Joe. Well, yeah, it is a skill issue. Stop being so sensitive.
Well, I guess a lot happened, but it's only whole 3 Jesus Christ.
Let's see what the score looks like now. It's not about how you start, but rather how you think.
Didn't you say that only losers have that mindset?
For real, I don't remember that.
Well, I do, but anyway, what's your approach to this whole Joe?
I'm just going to shoot straight with about 75% power. That's the idea. But that's what's happening. Good job, Joe.
There's no practice.
Go back.
It's about getting the job done.
Back.
And Joe has productive service.
Back. That's what I'm saying. Okay, I'll have one thing to do with this. It's got to go down to the one.
Nice job, Barack.
That's what it's got. Thanks, Joe. Let's see if Donald can come to form of Chinese condition.
I don't think I will.
Let's try
I
it.
think Barack.
Let me get a shot.
I don't think
All right, that's enough. You got a crazy seven. Back to you all the way. I believe it.
That's what we always play for. That was what we expected.
Preachers, Joe. Let's get a the first place. I don't know if you can talk.
If it's worth it, it's the first place to go.
Back.
So why is he talking that?
Cheers. Well, we got answer your question here. Stop and try and look at the top. Go stop. So don't worry about it, Donald. Walk through the traffic is good people out. What about all of that stuff?
I've heard enough to play for that.
For real.
I'm going to hold this before the question.
That's something
Well, how's that for actually fair score? I'm actually detecting the first place. Now, those are the facts. Watch me! What the hell?
Let us go on to the picture of I told you that. You didn't tell us there's 3 sections in the game of life. Golf is the play. And risk to make it come around.
I would 100% agree with that, Barack.
Got it.
I didn't know this was a good shot, Joe. Keep it up.
Second, I put too much power in that jump. You're fast, but want you to get this thing going to fall apart.
I can't wait to see what they score will do.
Then we'll get
They didn't know the country they always play it forward and thank you for coming
I'm
on.
getting stuck in this one. Oh, really?
Quicker than big reality playing forward.
Okay, you can be quiet. Don't show Joe quiet. Get back.
Yeah, for real. Just pull off the score and miss. That's pretty solid.
Okay, let's have a topic shot here. I'm going to step in and grab it.
All right, folks, if you're watching, please go to our team.
Really enjoyed the finish down. Watch the Joe.
Yeah, it's a first music. Dominance is what, huh? Dominance is being bad.
Why are you doing things out?
How dare you ask that?
So really.
You've been the one being talked about. Your first win ever was from risk, and we congratulated you, no problem. Then you became super toxic after that. Do you seriously have the audacity to say that kind of thing?
Okay, shut the hell up. Jack. Player 4 has got to run off the dog all the way. How do you not have
considering it's going to be further down bad. Maybe don't knock you out. Just pathetic. You don't get the cross player force. Oh, really? Damn it. Joe doesn't have anyone to work with. I do. Joe is respectful.
All right, now get out there and come back. We're walking and continue playing this well.
Watch this shot, boys. You're not making any of this. Let's go. We're not going to do the back end forward. It's like a lucky shot.
Try it, damn it.
What the hell? I have no clue what's going on anymore. For real, let's see what you got there, Joe. I'm not fucking hearing what I'm trying to say. I'm going to see you down there. What are you supposed to do there? Don't think you're fast. You can't do anything. Well, yeah, but you loaded like me, so you can look around that. Okay, try not to mess this shot up. Shut up, Rock. This is stupid on you. You honestly think I was going to mess up such a simple shot like that? Well, good luck, son. Okay, so let's hear about you, Joe. It's stupid as all.
Well, I guess we'll see up in 4 minutes then, so we can send this down there further on.
Scoreboard doesn't matter. How many times do you see this and it doesn't matter?
For real.
You literally got the setting with 3 holes left. You're going to it. I'm really good. I think it's come back. That worked out. So let's look at it. We're revealing the future. This is how I go about this program.
Thanks, Joe. I've been going through it plenty of times, but the defense still isn't taking the first place.
For real, let's try to replicate that. Once again, copy how you can do show us where that is. I was like, wait, what? That was just an important thing with the Rock. There's nothing important about that. The Rock is trash. That's why he's not out of bounds.
Okay, you want me to get clear for you? Hurry up and get ready.
Well, what's it look like? I'm doing copy of the house with the sisters. I'm trying to step in. Why do you understand?
I've been trying to figure out the players who are people to lose.
Screw you. All right, well, I got to figure it out. We'll do it at the building. Third place. Really? And I think we'll do the statement on that note.
It's because you got the lead. Once again, we'll be the final game to finish this whole up next turn.
Don't celebrate yet. You haven't won anything. All right, we're done to the last shot. Good shot, Ron. There's nothing special about it. Stop typing in front of the shot. You really got something to say during every turn, huh? For real. What's it take for you to set the loop? You really want to know, Joe? Yes, I do. So I'm leaving you out here. How about that?
Players who are
You're focusing on the wrong person. When this game is finished up, you will get strength. I assure you that I will be the winner of this game. All right, well, I guess I got to start getting this game.
it's about right. Good luck, Joe.
You're strong on the shot area. Damn it. You didn't get it.
Don't forget if you did it. Not even close. Hell no. Big hell to the middle.
You're doing well, John. Just don't let play the four filter you anywhere moving forward. Pretty strong.
Well, I plan on doing this every time. Good stuff.
I don't do the same thing. Damn.
Don't forget that the same thing because you're not as good as you think you are.
You know what they call that song?
All that we're on.
Fast.
Yes, sir.
So much news about it. It's disgusting. It's the watch. Nobody cares, Joe. Instead, watch the thing.
I can do that shot with my eyes closed.
I tell you to.
Here I go.
What you need to do with your eyes closed. You need to down.
Excuse me.
Do this exactly while you're going to get best once again player 4. Everything else thanks to that red exhibition.
All right, it's time for the updated scoreboard.
Scoreboard doesn't have a right. Important thing. That's good. The ball is done. Play is good. I'm trying to get it to but I didn't ask for a finish in the last 10 series like you. All right, I just got to play it safely so I can retain the race for third place once again. Okay, but going to go to that shot. It's not a big deal. Process. Once the shot, I want to get a week to score something.
Stop hitting with the wrong player score.
The way I play stuff, I can talk anything. I would be an absolute failure in life. So I'm good.
You're tied for last place right now.
So really,
So what's the harm?
scoreboard doesn't matter.
Well, that shot was pathetic. Get up to your score. You're going to get it from back.
I gotta sit down. I'm super excited. What the hell?
Okay, well, I'm excited. You don't know why, but go ahead.
We're getting closer and closer to 34 seconds. Excuse me? What more? You live in London.
It's definitely exciting stuff for us.
What the hell is wrong?
Whoa,
One time ago, the first to take that the captain was over.
okay, you're not
I was the U.S. doctor. Watch my race.
what grade is that won't work for Ron. You can't report something in this game that didn't even exist to begin with.
What the hell is wrong with you, Barack? What the hell is wrong with you, James? How about you focus on yourself? Well, I will. Watch for the clear. You think you're about to do right now. So, this it's called the gourmet cooking board. You can put it between the whole building. It doesn't matter if it's close. That is it. All right, let me try this strategy. Each different. Yeah, a little fast dough. A little fast for that whole. I will pick up those. You're not smart enough to recognize that. All of them have nothing to do with play the board. It's not personally. I won't respond to you anymore until it's time to respect. You're trash. The same just didn't have to reach you guys. You guys are both trash. You can question it, but at least there is no way. Here I go. Once this is crazy. You better imagine if it's way happening. Yeah, respect. Did you guys do that? I didn't hear anything like that. Seriously? Ignoring me? How about the respect? I just had to make a shot. So good, you understand? Just like that, we're moving into the last goal. Well, we got this kick in the bag. Player 4 will be getting his face protection into this last hole. I guarantee it. All right, Mike, but no one played up to the storm. It might be a little complicated when it's still in the midst of my opinion. But nobody has to listen. But shut up. Don't worry, I'm going to have this shot. I can have a shot. Why are you still calling like you got told? It's a good shot. It definitely is. It's fine. I'm going to just play it. I do that. I think the place you learn to go is the longer way. If you learn the middle like this, I believe you can do the whole thing. But if you learn them, you'll get so much. Your strat is down. It's the best way. And you got where I am. Right from above it. That's enough to fly. It's really good. I can go to the other because you're all that. You're all at the right. You go to the third place. Okay, you can go to the other. You got the fifth place. I'm going to do it. How are you doing? About that for long. All right, I got it. This is really interesting. You don't have any left like player 4 like you see the shot there. Whoa. Next one around. That was a single clutch shot. Let's go. Well, I guess you reach the other side of the city at times, but you won't get out of This practice is good enough. They're not good. How about you watching it? I'm not sure if you're putting enough power into that shot down there. It'll be close steps to shoot. There is no chance you're completing the hole. It's secret place. Wow. I thought you could grab. Watch the gas. Back. Here's the future. You're pathetic, though. Give it up. Stop it doing for a while. Do it about your pathetic. Watch the work before. We will have respect protection. One thing from life I ever got. One thing else is protection for the confidence too. And one of it is the confidence too. Face the time. You can't do that until I finish up there. I'm excited for this. You're going to shoot for it. You're good. Play it forward. Step the foot for this time today. I want that. I want. Let's go over. Hallelujah. So it's your face. That's what you like. That's all the face. It's done. Yeah.
Ow.
The functionality and creative explanation. The city of the city great these things and develop my own head. So I like it. But services, you want to do it on the basis of attention. It's getting time back in my day. Yeah. Really happy with it. It brings good night everything.
Well, that is already again. 32-1 as usual, and it's the second to last Saturday night power ranking. Looking forward to Saturday night. I want to make sure that this video still gets you. I found a hidden when I posted the power rankings right after the first few was done, and I felt like, oh, I can down to that's the Sunday morning power ranking. Number 32 this week, same thought as last week. I feel bad for Tommy the point of things. There are some really good young players coming up, though. Moore has some of those helped at their last game. And I think Porter looks better than he did last season. If you saw what his actions had so far, just coming back up to the roster. I think the future is pretty bright. This summer, they really know good big players. And the free agency, they're more motivated to centralize. Salary can't go enough like it's going to. There's going to be some teams that are pretty aggressive, and Chicago may be one of those teams. So while this season is lost, next season is on. Number 31, same spot as last week, Boston. Coming into today, they were actually 32nd. Actually dropped them past Chicago. Then they got the win tonight, and then they're back up to 31st. They only win one game after 10 straight losses. I'm kind of moving at one spot. Not finding moving up more than that, even if it is against Carolina. So Boston is 31st, but in the end, they're in the same spot they were last week. So if you're watching this, and you watch last week, it's the same. Yeah, just see the foods are in the week, and then very often end up back in the same spot. San Jose just move up more down this week. They're still number 3rd. So San Jose Sharks are also playing us the strength. There's some ugly losses in there, but they're not alone in that. This was after the trade deadline. After the trade deadline, a lot of teams were in these mediocre records get along with. So the separation we're seeing now between the haves and have-nots in the NHL is indicative of the fact the trade deadline is done, and a lot of teams that were going on playoff lines just sold off, and their rosters are significantly worse than what they were before the trade deadline. Number 29, same spot as last week, Nashville. Nashville. That they're a team that we will be interested to see what happens with them this summer, because there's talks that stated previously that, it feels like they are dealing with the Army in the summer and go for it again. They were in the playoffs last year, so they could find a way back in next year. But it's not going to be easy, and so Nashville is going to be, I think there's something that's going to be fascinating. This summer, with the salary cap going up, I think it's simply the best option we've had in 6 years. I'll say 6 years. And a lot of these teams there towards the bottom, a lot of them are probably going to have a lot of cap space. And so they could all of a sudden have a chance to make themselves a lot better in the offseason. Number 28, dropping one spot from last week, Philadelphia. The Flyers got that bump from the Flyers from Philadelphia. They didn't last that long. I'm not surprised that they didn't, to be honest. There are some good pieces there. Woodstock's going to be a star for them. There's some other good pieces in Philadelphia as well, of course. Connecting the guy the offense rotates around. But Philadelphia is definitely playing with a spring at this point. They had a good effort against Montreal and Punch Smith, but I'm wearing a Montreal sweater and because Montreal has pretty good week, and Philadelphia dropped the spot because they didn't have a good week. Number 27, also dropping one spot from last week. Yeah. The Seattle Kraken, mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. No longer in the running at all. I think Philadelphia is eliminated as well. I was looking at the standings tonight. They don't have a team next to Philadelphia, but from my math, I think they're right. So, yeah, the Seattle Kraken playing with the spring. They got a win tonight against San Jose, but I can't move them up for beating San Jose because it's sort of not really the way that works. Number 26, dropping 3 spots from last week, Hammond. Still 34th on the Teachers Landline, but they do drop back into the bottom row, which is the first time they've been involved in the bottom row for a bit. I do believe that's the future is really good. Some of these young players are going to be very difficult to stop next year, and they are definitely going to be fun to watch.
for making some additions in the offseason. I also wonder, there's a lot of contracts we look at and go, well, that's not a great contract. How many of these teams are going to be in line to pick up a contract that you may think is not great right now? Do they have to cap space to add? And if they still add, it's like, sometimes a bad contract years ago isn't bad now. A great contract 2 years ago might look bad now. So it's two things to take. Number 25, and leaving up 3 spots for last week, Buffalo. I'm frustrated too. The Buffalo Sabres team, I really hope the team play the way they are now. They're ready to play really well. And it's late, which it feels like is sort of an MO for the Buffalo Sabres. Maybe they're trying to get above that NHL 500, so I can stand in front of a board when the season's done and talk about the season, go, oh, we take minutes above NHL 500. I'm not going to say it, but I mean, honestly, it's been a long year for Buffalo. And it's just a change of season, like now they're playing better. Honestly, they're not supposed to. Every night, you never know that you'll just like ever do it. You'll only find it when the sale is on there. And you're going to do the whole there.
I don't know if I get some story of that.
And it's too late. So that's your bottom line. The one that has the least amount of arguments about it. Number, not saying none, but the least amount. Number 24 is moving up 1 spot from last week's Pittsburgh. So the Penguins move up 1 spot. They did get the win today over Dallas, which I did mention in the review on the streak football. I felt like Dallas, and that 7-game win streak coming in today, it's perhaps a winning streak, but some of those wins on their own. I was impressive, and it looks like they might get away with not playing full 60 minutes against Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh getting a lot. So the 3 seeds are back, and hopefully that can come out of that. But Pittsburgh needs themselves out of bottom. So they've had a decent run in the trade deadline, and I don't feel like they're going to get to a rebuild this one. I don't think they are. I think they're going to try to look for it again. But if I had a dime for every time that I have heard, it's an absolute shame that the Crosby isn't going to make the playoffs. Absolutely doesn't make the playoffs. What I like about the National Hockey League now, absolutely makes the playoffs. The playoffs is good fun. Speaking of it, number 23 is just dropping 2 spots for us. Not good for them tonight against Toronto, and they have teams where they kind of have their sticks in their hands, and it's fun. And tonight was another example where they come up with a really good effort, they jumped on Toronto, a really good goal or two, and they possessed themselves, but they didn't. And in the end, saw them effective equally. And for the Columbus, it definitely looks like the season is winding down to the playing close for them. It is a victory, but they're playing games that matter in March, and April is in the weekend. It's March and April, but most of March and April as well. That's the case. Number 22, moving up spot from last week, is great. They had a decent week. They did. And the third Red Wings, they haven't decided that they're going to advance as long haul. They don't care about strength and schedule. They got good teams, they got good pitchers. I was impressed with Carolina. Right? We will see there's upcoming week if they can make this a little more interesting in that case for that one. I'm sorry, the team here doesn't seem to have any interest in giving up at this point in time. Number 21, moving up 1 spot from last week, New York Islanders. The Islanders moved up to 7 spot. There was a whole player thing that happened this week. Despite the team, they won the game. Tomorrow morning, of course, they're hosting the Alexander Ovechkin show. Alex Ovechkin, he is going to have Gretzky night, Gretzky, and no matter whether it happens tomorrow. I think the next game after that is against Carolina. Considering how Brock has second against Carolina earlier, no idea what to expect if Ovechkin was again goalie on the side tomorrow instead of gets against Carolina. It's kind of ugly. But at any rate, the Islanders are going to do this up in the Dallas show of Ovechkin trying to catch Gretzky out of the side. Number 20, dropping 1 spot from last week, Vancouver. They did get wins today over Anaheim with 10 bucks, and honestly, there is a team that it feels like their team for the Vancouver Canucks, I don't see them getting above the playoff point because I don't see Minnesota while they're deep. And we'll talk about Minnesota quickly. I don't think they're weak enough that Calgary and Vancouver will necessarily be in the past. That being said, though, dropping 4 spots honestly, in Minnesota. In my opinion, looks like the team that's going to be dangerous from playoffs because everybody's hurt. A lot of injured players for Minnesota Wild. Injury spots and not less so than all season. Earlier, we said Minnesota had the playbook to get healthy, and here we are when the playoffs started tonight. And Minnesota is no healthier than teams right now than they were a few weeks ago. And at what point did you start asking? So, the Freestyle and everything else, how will they do some playoff night? The Minnesota Wild could tear down and try to match up with them if it's Freestyle. Yes, they could fall in the playoffs. I don't think they will, but there is that possibility. I think they'll win enough to stay above the line. Number 18, they spotted last week for the Rangers. The Rangers had an opportunity today, and they lost, so they've fallen 4 points off the pace now in that case for the second wildcard spot in the East. And I don't know how to fix the Rangers. I'm sure that they're going to take a lot of the blame because, there's the goaltender and those numbers haven't been sure like this year. There's a lot of blame to go around. Coaching staff, that's how they've got a statement of flexible coaching staff. He's not wrong either. There's little things in their game that you can tell. Something just, it's not the same as last year. I just keep on understanding that. As the Rangers almost the same thing as last year, yeah, that's what they did years. It doesn't look like they're going to make it. And so then the next question becomes, you just let go of the fact that they're going to draft pick. So they have the option. They know what it's going to be a top ball. So let us team have the number 4 draft pick. If you're concerned about next year, which is not protected. So, in the event the Rangers are really concerned about next year's unprotected draft pick, they do have the right trade, or just to give up on the draft pick. I don't know where it is. They can't do that. But anyway, going with the out on that. Number 17 this week, moving up 3 spots from last week. Utah. Utah has had an extensive trade on the depth, and they're still mathematically alive. They're not mathematically, but they're mathematically alive, and as long as they're mathematically alive, they're still playing. Utah is also a team that where they're running the draft lottery. They're a team that has a lot of good young players. They're not that far off. So draft lottery is going to compare them, and that rounds out well number 2 this season. Did you go to number 16, they saw lots of scouting. Justin, getting 1 point instead of 2. A lot of fans I'm sure are going to be very upset with how all of that was decided and officiated.
Other products is a complete property access control solution, providing a secure, convenient, and affordable way to manage access on the go. Butterfly MS, property access made simple.
Beyblade X. Collect, customize, compete with your perfect Beyblade top. 3, 2, 1, let it rip. Beyblade X. You can collect them all. First race fair. Sold separately, subject to availability.
And, yeah, it is tough. And so for Calgary, I don't think they make it. Between Calgary and Vancouver, I do obviously think Calgary are better. So, under 50 and dropping 1 spot to 1 of these compared to the Devils drop 1 spot. They got that. I don't have one sense of the just a little bit. Now, they did get some win over New York Rangers. Absolutely. They also got one over Minnesota. Both teams that are down. The New Jersey, one over team side, South Bay City. So that's good news, and that's going to help the New Jersey this week. Yeah, they got passed by a team that was pretty good right now. So, if you're wondering why New Jersey dropped the spot, we're in the cutter, and Tampa in the cutter, why they dropped that spot. But there's a team that dropped 7 spots in the East. They're 14th this week. What is going on with Florida? They just look not like Florida. And I know, Chuck says, Bartol's out, Max Black is still suspended. So it's a pretty big number 13, moving up 4 spots from last week. Montreal. They're not the only team moving up 4 spots, but that is the biggest movement this week. At least good enough for record. The down, that's Florida, dropping 7 spots. Now you see why Montreal got different and why Florida dropped 7 spots. Montreal is good place. And so Montreal moved up. It was up to 13. And I've talked a lot about St. Louis and how I don't think that would be a team you necessarily want to face in the first round right now. I don't know if Montreal wants to lose either. These guys are having fun, they're loose, they're well coached, they're skilled. They've got pretty good goaltending too. So I don't know if Montreal is that everybody's got to line up and one face not really down either. I think these playoffs are going to be fantastic. I'm just saying right now, I think this year's playoffs are going to be remarkable. Because I do think that there's very little difference between the top teams and the bottom teams in either conference, and that's great stuff. It's really good hockey. Number 12, dropping 1 spot to last week. Ottawa. So Ottawa gets past this week. But keep in mind that Ottawa right now, they are very close to clinching their first playoff spot in a long time. So the fact that Ottawa is still in the top half of the board tells you I was having a good year. And I really hope to get the battle this year. I'm really rooting for the Ottawa matchup. So I find myself serious in Toronto and hoping that Canada and Florida take the minus so they can play against each other. And then get Toronto and Ottawa in the first round. And I think that would be absolutely fantastic. So that's what I've got my fingers crossed for. We have not had a battle in Ontario in challenges with this. And I can absolutely see like retrospective of the history going back to early 2000s, late 90s, everything that early, late 90s, anyway. I know the early 2000s again, and it was something. Toronto and Ottawa, well, really enough is going to happen now. We will make sure to video this Saturday practice setup. They get to show that it's pretty portion of that series. I'm excited. I hope that will be good. Number 11, moving up 2 spots from last week, Everton. Oilers, usually how like anything can happen. Everybody needs to know, so I'm going to for that. I think Everton's playing alright, considering no Draisaitl, considering no McDavid, no Stuart Skinner. I think the Oilers are coming well, and I think this is a good experience for them. As long as McDavid and Draisaitl are both good to go for the playoffs, and that the next was successful and then as well. Got to be 100%. Got to be playing. And still, playoffs. I think the Oilers, they very well benefit from having this time without their top players, and maybe it makes them eager to come playoff time. They did go all the way to the final last year, but they have not looked like the same team this year. Maybe this little stretch here, maybe they'll help get back to that level. Number 10, dropping 5 spots, 5 from last week. Vegas. Vegas had a rough week. Now they salvaged it at the end with the 3-2 overtime win over Calgary, which Wayne fans will tell them just how legitimate they do that win tonight. I haven't seen comments, and I know just from how someone can't reacted to doing that, and just from what I saw their game, I was like, yeah, they're not going to like that, because some fan base would like these calls and the way this would be that thing for Vegas. They kind of held on by getting their team tonight, and they haven't looked great. They looked awful in that game against Winnipeg, and Vegas just, I even said out loud talking to them against Calgary, and I said to myself, I don't think this is a break going into the playoffs. They don't look like it's a contender at this point in time. And what this is too is you've got Vegas, Edmonton, Calgary, and this round, and there's nothing in Civic Division at the top. So, Civic Division is at the best on the board. We'll see if they can take some out. Number 9, and actually, so we have 3 spots in the last week. I think the Kings are the highest in the division. I have to say that. And then look down and go, oh, wait, the next spot is the Civic Division. The Kings look pretty well positioned right now. They look pretty well positioned. And I don't think they're scared of Vegas. I don't think they're worried about everything this year that's previous. For the reasons I mentioned that. Just right now, and it's LA and it's on nice advantage. LA's fantastic at home. So far this regular season. So, that record setting and all that. LA's good days. So that's five. Top eight. Arnold's putting the good teams in there. This is going to be business, online business, and marketing. Get more business or spectating. Then I actually do not recommend higher your so
Bud Light Lifetime Mixed Pack, made with natural flavors.
yeah, let's get into which team's going to this marinara. Number 8, this we got 2 spots in line. Yeah, they went to the top row. They are number 1 in their division. They are number 3 ranked team on the power rankings of the division. And they're winning the games they need to. They're getting the points they need to. They may very well win the division. And maybe staying away from the Florida Big teams will be good for them. And maybe they get to that second round. And maybe the Florida Big teams be a lot of each other. And maybe that second round, maybe that gives a little bit of an edge to Toronto. There's a couple of guys who are out of the lineup for the Rivers who can take that first round in Florida because of injuries. And that series probably gets a little bit dismal really early. Toronto, maybe they really don't get the one. Positive and looking to a little loud. And then there's also going to be independent things that I'm walking and on. Number 7, moving up 1 spot from East Carolina. There's 6 stars in the league. Not a great 7 in the league. So they end up almost the exact same spot and basically have passed Vegas. It's the only reason they moved up the spot. They actually moved up one of them. That team against Washington, they look fantastic. Even if not all together in practice, it took place. Carolina looks real good. I was like, hey, they didn't go get searching, so these guys look fantastic. And they lost to Detroit, and then they lost to Boston, and they ended up almost down where they started. So they got third at number 7. Number 6, dropping 4 spots last year. They're up with Milwaukee. One question on that. And this would be a interesting question. And I answered them that my wife's really message. I do think that the Ovechkin case has become a bit of a distraction to the team. And I do think that it has affected their play over the last couple of weeks. Once Ovechkin has passed the Gretzky number, gets to 95 and 2 tomorrow morning, I expect Washington's play to get a lot better. I don't expect Ovechkin to score. I would be surprised if he doesn't score a goal in the regular season because I think the focus is going to be on getting the team playing its best before I'm going to score in the play. So it's going to be okay. But we've got the record. Now we need to make sure we're ready for the playoffs. And I think we'll see those slight improvements, but right now they are there. And the Washington Capitals have not looked great over the last little bit. Number 5, also moving on 4 spots in the so big sleeper here again in St. Louis. So St. Louis has gone 20-6 in 3 weeks. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, early on in the season, like first 15 games, sure that we'll see if you don't make up, because that's what happened. But at this point in the season, this is virtually unheard of. So St. Louis, very dangerous team. 12 team winning streak takes them all the way. They were here 3 weeks ago. Now they're up here. So I would not want to see my team play in the first round. This is probably part of the reason why I'm fine with Dallas finishing second. Because in the event that Minnesota played well and you can jump past St. Louis, rather not have, hey, look, you won the President's Trophy in their first round opponent. The Blues. That'll be a good run. Number 4 this week, and moving up 2 spots from last week, Tampa. He's around the 20 minutes on, playing all season right now. That's enough to put up ridiculous numbers for the last couple of months. Evans looks good, so while in Tampa, they did lose today, and we can't talk with them. But I didn't bust them down. I felt like they played well. And when the team is playing well and lose that one game there, I will very often say, we'll see the next one. We'll see this Brander in Milwaukee. I don't think they play tomorrow. I'll look at the board. No, they don't play tomorrow. So that's down tomorrow. That's going to get a little bit of news down there. They're still number 4. I think they're going to be okay doing the playoffs. Number 3, moving up 1 spot in the market, is Colorado. They almost did it. They ran enough time against St. Louis. I think they stayed at 5 minutes, and I think they probably got it. And they went. It was really difficult for St. Louis. They got by, they got it done. But if they didn't have that extra minutes, otherwise, that game was not over. I don't know if Colorado would have lost that one. I think they probably would have won it. The Astros are a good team. And after the base is still out there about teams not that are not convinced that the Blues will make the right move and that this team is going in the right direction. I think they are. I think that first round series is it between Dallas. The 2 teams will move up in the spot. All right, it's 3.
What do you think of Richmond's one of the best? First rounds we've watched in a long time. The Dallas Stars coming off a 7-game winning streak. They lost today in Pittsburgh. They have over the last couple of weeks on one occasion been first. They have at one point been first on the board, but not on a day that I record this. It's always funny to me because I do this on Saturday night and I stand in front of the board, but all week I track where teams are. I track who's where and I go over it in my brain. There was one time last week where I'm going by the board and I looked at it and I went, I can't justify that team being there because I realized that team was playing poorly and I dropped them a couple of spots walking by the board. So that happens where I just look at the board and I go, I can't just. And there's times where I'm getting Saturday, and I look and I go, I think that team's in the wrong spot, and I got to move them. But number one this week, Winnipeg. I don't know how many ways there are to describe what's going on with Winnipeg.
You should have like wood instead of rubber. Yeah, because that's tangible. You know that? That's plastic. Plastic rubber. That's why that's dangerous. And then, how you do it? Okay, that's it. And both. Okay. So you can relax.
Yeah, carried on like that.
Why is he still there?
That's fine.
So they lose tonight against Utah, but they also played their best game of the season against Vegas. In Vegas. Just lost everything. And so they're all in the team the same way, which is will take some good regular season games. And then the playoffs roll around and they don't look as good. They have to find a way over the hump because I think this is the best setup this team's ever been to win a championship. And so this kind of has to be the year for Winnipeg, and with my fingers crossed if it happens, it would be so amazing to see a Stanley Cup in Winnipeg. I would be very happy. This team has been number one in the power rankings a lot this season, and I couldn't justify dropping in the second because I could justify Dallas in first, or Colorado, or Tampa. St. Louis eventually might get there. St. Louis, if they keep doing what they did this, may end up number one by the end of the season, which would be bonkers. But they could end up there. So at any rate, there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to like and subscribe to me that you may not have done so already. They're all AI voices, strictly for entertainment purposes. You think I'm playing the video game to make them use my own.
then I really need to reevaluate my life. And if you were just second goodbye, thank you for watching, and Merry Christmas. Until soon.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Whatever.
Well, the people have spoken. And that is what we will be playing for our holiday special.
Holiday special, huh? So what kind of festive theme fun should we expect in this one?
The snow game.
We did that already.
Well, actually, a team golf with your friends was going to win. I was going to pick the Christmas themed map and make you hockey. So that won by the So because of your assumption, you're unprepared, the best you can come up with something. Well, there isn't really any holiday thing in the game. Well, I'm not sure what you're asking for.
There is some, like, I don't know, some sort of Christmas arena playing.
Maybe some like fun. But I don't believe so.
Hell, what? It's a dog.
What gives you a reason to feel the man owns the team?
I don't actually care enough to listen to find it. Let's just play. I'm open.
Oh, wait, I know what we can do. Why don't we play one of the games that are happening with Christmas?
That's not a bad idea.
What do you think? Raider Kitchen Team.
Yeah, that's nice to have the game focus solely on chemistry.
Well, it isn't actually, but else.
Giants and the Eagles.
Aren't the Eagles kind of cool?
They lost 3 in a row and failed to beat Drew fucking Lock.
The Jalen Hurts and the Birds, Steve Mahomes, and Josh Allen in back-to-back weeks.
Got bailed out by the way.
Oh, geez, you're one of those people.
The hell do you mean I'm one of those people? Fine, pick the first, so they can get their asses handed. Okay,
Daniel Jones is out.
who's their season?
It's time.
Yeah,
Franchise
you'll be
mode.
all right.
Continue.
What's the other game?
Last one is Ravens going up against the Niners.
That's it. That's the one. That's